Surprises are usually one of two things. They are either good, such as your boss surprising you with a bonus or a raise or promotion, maybe. That would be a good surprise. A birthday party, maybe. Surprise. I guess that could go either way, depending on what you think about birthday parties. Or a surprise can be bad. Getting in your car only to realize that the battery's dead. Or worse, getting home and finding your door open and inside and finding that there are things that you expected to be there that were no longer there. Not such a good surprise. Well, in Matthew 24, verses 42 through 51, Jesus gives a warning that one day He's going to surprise us. He's going to surprise everybody. Sometimes when a warning is given, it can ruin the surprise, but not really in this case. Let's read these verses, what Jesus said in Matthew 24, beginning in verse 42, part of which we just read a minute ago. But we'll read it again. Matthew 24, beginning in verse 42. Watch therefore, for you know not on what day your Lord comes. But know this, if the master of the house had known in what watch the thief was coming, he would have watched, and wouldn't have suffered his house to be broken through. Therefore you also be ready, for in an hour that you think not, the Son of Man comes. Who then is the faithful and wise servant whom his Lord has set over his household to give them their food in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he comes, shall find so doing. Verily I say unto you, that he will set him over all he has. But if that evil servant shall say in his heart, my Lord tarries, delays, and shall begin to beat his fellow servants, and shall eat and drink with the drunken, the Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he expects not, and in an hour when he doesn't know, and shall cut him asunder, and appoint his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be the weeping and the gnashing of teeth. There's the warning, there's the surprise, and yet it still is to be a surprise when he returns. He says he's going to return, but it's a surprise still because you're not going to know when. You won't know. Nobody will know. Nobody will expect. And yet he warns about that return, to be ready. The question we want to ask is, when Jesus surprises us with his return, or when we are surprised by our own departure from this world, maybe, will it be our most terrible day? Let's just, for the sake of this lesson and study, assume that we will be alive when Jesus returns, all of us. Will it be the best day ever? It's going to be a surprise either way. Will it be the most glorious day, or will it be the most terrible day for us? What will it be? Well, we're going to notice three things that Jesus teaches us in this warning from the section we just read, and then from the first portion of Matthew 25. First of all, he gives us an explanation of how we should live each day. This is the purpose of the warning. How can we be ready for something we don't know when it's going to be? Simple. You be ready every day. Each day. So he gives us an explanation of how we should live each day in the first three verses, 42 through 44. He tells us to watch, or to be on the alert. We must live on the alert. Live on the alert. We should be keeping watch. In other words, we're talking about being in a constant state of readiness, or maybe in a state of constant readiness. You're just ready. Initially, a person gets ready for this in the way he's talking about, by being baptized into Christ, obeying the gospel. That's how you get ready. You can't be ready if you haven't obeyed the gospel. But there's more preparation after that. Living faithfully, living a life of faithful service to Him. So we can't be ready. We can't be in readiness until we've done those things, if we're not doing those things. And then keeping watch, not for signs that He's about to come. In this very chapter, more of which we'll see later tonight, Jesus said there will not be any signs. There's no reason to watch for signs of Jesus' return because Jesus said there won't be any. And if Jesus said there won't be any, then, if Jesus said there won't be signs for Jesus' return, why would anybody think otherwise? He's the one that told us there won't be any signs for His coming, His second coming, as we call it. So not keep watch for the signs like many people do. They're all over the place. The signs, can't you tell? Wars and rumors of wars. What these people don't seem to understand is that wars and rumors of wars have been going on since the beginning of time. In fact, the argument could easily be made, and I think rightfully made, there is far less war in a global sense today than there has been in the past historically. But nevertheless, what should we be watching for then? We're watching not for signs of that His return's almost here, but watch for His return itself. Watch in readiness, be ready for when He returns. Somebody who's keeping watch in the literal sense, they are ready in case somebody shows up that they don't know, or that somebody turns up. You think of an encampment or some sort of, maybe in a military sense, somebody staying up for a particular amount of time. This was the point of the watches of the night. They'd be watching. They wouldn't sleep for that period. They would be watching just in case somebody comes. Now, it may be that nobody came, but somebody could. And if they were watching, they would be ready to react to that. They will be ready for that coming. That's what Jesus says we should be doing each and every day. That means today we should be ready. We should have been ready yesterday, we should be ready today, and we should be ready tomorrow. Don't plan for a delay, but be ready now and always, living on the alert. Why must we live on the alert? Because we don't know when He's coming. That's why I must be ready. It's like a doctor who's on call, or some other profession who might be on call. You have to be ready for when that call comes. Don't assume it's not going to come. I never get called. So I know I'm not going to get called today or tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and go about some other process, maybe going to sleep early or whatever it may be, and turning my phone off or whatever, just because I'm assuming it's not going to happen. No, be ready, because you don't know. It could be that it happens at this very time. In fact, Jesus said, in this case, it will happen at a time when you're not expecting. Not just at a time when you don't know, not just that you don't know now when it's going to be, but when it does come, it's going to be when you weren't expecting it to. Nobody will. Which is why none of the predictions will ever be true, by the way. Because otherwise, some people will have been expecting it. And Jesus said it's going to happen at a time when people do not expect. It's going to come at a time when you don't think it's coming. Which is also true of pretty much everybody, almost everybody's own death as well. Very, very small percentage, I would say, of overall human deaths occur when the person is expecting it to occur, no matter what age they are. Many, many deaths occur at the exact opposite, when they weren't expecting. So be ready, always. Then he gives us an example of how we should live each day. In verses 45 through 51, the rest of the chapter, rest of chapter 24, we have two slaves. They're called servants sometimes, but really the word is the word for slave. There's the sensible slave. Jesus says he's faithful and he's wise. How come? How so? Because he busies himself with his master's will. That's what he goes about doing on a daily basis. He's simply doing what his master would want him to be doing. What his master has told him maybe to be doing. That's what he's doing. He has no idea when, and by the way, this is in his master's absence. He's gone. He's given a charge, he leaves. While his master is gone, in his master's absence, he's busying himself with his master's will. That's why he's faithful, and that's why he's wise. That's a wise thing to do. Then we have the selfish slave. The selfish slave, Jesus says, is wicked, evil. He's wicked. Why is he wicked? Because he busies himself with his own will, let alone the specifics of what he says. The point is, he's doing his own will, and that's all he's concerned with doing. That's all he wants to do. He's not caring about his master's will. He's doing whatever he wants. The sensible slave, the wise and faithful, received his master's approval. Their master returned. One got his master's approval, and he received a reward. But the selfish slave, disapproval and punishment. Horrible punishment. Cut asunder, the old ASV says. Footnote says, he will severely scourge him. If I was going to guess, I would say not anybody in here has ever been scourged, literally, in the sense that it would have been used in the first century. And that's even lightly. So you can only imagine to be severely scourged. It's not going to be a fun time. In fact, Jesus says in the place where he's going to be put out, there will be the weeping and the gnashing of teeth, which is the way Jesus referred to hell most of the time. All because he busied himself with his own will, didn't concern himself with the master's will, the master's return. He said, he ain't coming. We know how this goes. He's going to be gone for who knows how long, months and months. I'll be dead before he comes back. So I'm going to do whatever I want. But to that servant's surprise, here he comes. Showed up, didn't expect. And he was punished. He did not please his master. He was met with disapproval. Many of us are going through life, busying ourselves with our own things, our own will. We're not doing what Jesus would have us do, what he's told us to do, but we're doing our own will. We're more concerned with our own will as if our life is our own than his will. Finally, he gives us an application then of how we should live each day. In chapter 25, this is what we call the parable of the 10 virgins. There were 5 virgins who were wise. They were wise, Jesus says, because in addition to their lamps, which would have had oil in them to burn, they brought extra. They brought flasks of oil, an extra supply. They did that because they understood that maybe that there was a chance. They were waiting for the bridegroom to come, just like a procession, a normal wedding procession in the way they did things in their culture at that time. They were waiting to meet the bridegroom. And whenever his procession came along, they would join in. They would go out, continue along with them, and go to the big feast, the big banquet, the wedding feast. It may be a while, they thought. So they brought extra oil. And so even though their bridegroom was delayed, they were ready. They were prepared. For any eventuality, they were prepared. But then we have the 5 foolish virgins. They did not make provisions. They did not make preparations. They didn't bring any extra, but they just brought their lamps. They took no oil along with their lamps in the way that the wise ones had. So that by the time the bridegroom came, which was about midnight, they'd run out. They frantically tried to get more. They first begged the wise, give us some of your oil. You've got that extra supply. Each of you could give each of us half of your supply, or even less, just a quarter of it. But they said, no, can't do that. Doesn't matter why they couldn't. They couldn't. Wasn't theirs to do. Wasn't for them. That wouldn't be right. It was too late. They even went and tried to get more for the marketplace. Don't know why they would do that at midnight. Shows how desperate they were. They showed up. The door was shut. The bridegroom had already come. He had already opened the door, or taken the people with him. He had already shut the door. And here they are banging at the door. You can picture them. They're outside that door. The lights are on inside. The lamps are burning. More lamps were lit. They're having a feast, joyous celebration of which they thought they were going to be a part. But instead, they're outside, in the dark, alone. And the bridegroom says, I know you're not. We literally just sang a song that mentions this very concept. When he says those words, depart, I know ye not. Because they weren't ready. Which is also the purpose of that song, the message of that song. Be ready. Are you ready? Because if you're not ready for that day to come, you will hear those words. Depart, I know ye not. And therefore Jesus says, watch, therefore. Don't be like them, but be ready, because you don't know the day or the hour. So you have to be ready, as if it's going to be right now. If you're not ready now, there's a very high risk, there's a chance that you will not be ready when Jesus comes, because Jesus could come now. So he gave us the teaching, he gave us the example, he's given us the application, as he's already done many times and in different ways, but probably nowhere more directly and bluntly than this. Be ready. And he says in verse 36 of chapter 24, no one knows, not even himself. That's how big of a surprise it's going to be. It's going to be a surprise to everybody. He says, at that time at least, it would even be a surprise to him. For some, it's going to be a great surprise. It's going to be like a party, like something that they've been dreaming of. For others, it's going to be the most horrendous nightmare, the most tragic turn of events that they could ever imagine. The trumpet will sound. Think about an ancient context of war and battle. A horn blast and what that would mean. Probably would have had different blasts for different things. But on the battlefield, that horn would generally mean one thing. It means you better lace up your boots and arm up, because we got to go march. We got to march out to fight. And that horn, I don't know about you, but I know for myself, that would be a dreadful sound. Even if in theory I thought I was ready for it. That trumpet could fill somebody with dread. Well, what about the trumpet that will sound on this day? Paul said that's what's going to happen. When he comes, it's going to be the shout of the archangel. The trumpet of the Lord will sound. and you won't be expecting it. Are you awake? Are you alert? Not necessarily the same thing, by the way. Awake is better than asleep, but alert is better than just awake. Are you alert in the way Jesus is saying, are you ready? Those three words right there should strike something in our hearts when we think about that day, that trumpet, that shout, Jesus returning. It may be something that we've heard about so much that we don't even feel that it's real. It's not really going to happen. Yeah, we believe in Jesus, and yeah, we know that we need to do what God wants, and so on and so forth. But Jesus coming back with the saints, the saints in Christ being with him, their spirits coming back with him, and the trumpet blast, none of that is, it's not going to happen. At least it's not going to happen in my lifetime. Well, if you think that, then there's a good chance that it is going to happen in your lifetime, or at least it'll be too late whenever you come around to it. So Jesus' message for us is, you better be ready. What kind of surprise is it going to be for you? It's going to be one of those great surprises. It's going to be one of the terrible surprises. Whatever you answer to that, it's up to you. You get to decide if Jesus' return will be happy or tragic, just like those virgins waiting for the bridegroom to come. That was their choice to be unprepared, just like it was the choice of the wise to be prepared. So it's your choice to be prepared. It's your choice to be ready. So are you ready? Are you going about your own business oblivious to the Lord's will, putting him second or third, or even not even on the list at all? His church? How big of a priority in your life is the Lord and his church? The Lord's will. If your main priority is your own will and your own life, when he returns, he's not going to be pleased. You're not going to be met with approval, but punishment, disapproval. So are you ready? I know you don't want that. So what are you doing about it? What are you going to do about it? Are you going to be ready? Are you going to be awake? Wake up, be alert. It's the only thing to do. If you've obeyed the gospel, you've taken a big step. But what about the way you're living? Are you dedicated to the Lord? Have you really given yourself to him, your life to him? Have you really died with him, so to speak, to rise again in newness of life and walk with him in the light, being ready?